I've done another video on this little MD80 camera, and I've been thinking about stripping it down as I did with this keychain cam, so that it could actually be powered and connected to the Heliguy Viper. This has worked okay, but as I said in one of my other videos, occasionally will stop recording. I think this guy could be even lighter once I stripped the case off and also wired it up to take power from the Viper's battery. So what I'm going to do in this video is strip this thing and also show you how I made this little connector at the back using these cables. So I've had a couple of questions about how I did that, so I'm just going to go through the individual steps. First thing I'm going to do is just take out the 4 screws. There are 2 on each side, one on the top and one on the bottom, and then we'll come back and have a look at what's inside. So here we are. What I've done is I've just undid those 4 screws and the back just comes straight off. As expected, there is quite a large lithium polymer battery. This thing weighed about 12 grams when I started, so I'm guessing the case and the battery are going to have quite a bit in there. What I'm going to do is just carefully remove this motherboard. I'm going to have to pull some of these pieces out of the way to get it out, and then we'll have a look at what's actually left once we've stripped all the other bits and pieces off. Okay, so we have the front part of the case off now. Interestingly, it just pops out. The thing I had to do was just remove the SD card from the slot at the side. That was the thing that was fouling, and once that was done, it pretty much pulled straight out the case. Nice thing about this is the camera is pretty well connected, so I'm not going to have to do anything about that. I might have to hot glue the recorder for sound, because the little microphone here, I don't know if you can see, but that's pretty free, so I'm going to have to put a blob of hot glue in the corner just to make sure that doesn't go anywhere. And the battery itself is just held on with that piece of foam and connects to those 2 pieces at the bottom. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to unsolder these 2 wires, making sure that I remember that the black one is towards the bottom. And what I'm going to also do is I'm just going to hot glue that little microphone into the top right hand corner, and then we'll have a look at what we've got left. I'll also weigh what's left and weigh the battery and other bits and pieces. One of the things I've just done is part of the challenge with this little camera is it always has to be upright because the camera faces forward, but actually as it's on the foam, all I've done is just pull this off, and using the foam that was holding the battery in place, I've just put a little bit onto the back of the camera. Hopefully you can see that okay. Let me just zoom in slightly so you get a better view. That's better. And what I'm going to do is also, while I've got the hot glue gun out, is I'm actually going to glue that onto there like that. And then what that means is I can actually mount the board flat onto any model, particularly the Viper, and I will be able to still point the camera forward. So let me just do that now and I'll come straight back. Okay, so now we have the board with the camera facing forward so that I can mount it flat. We need to obviously connect the power settings. It still has the connection for the USB, but what I've just done now is just pop this on to the scale. Amazingly, the case and the battery are the majority of the weight in here. This thing that's left is just under 4 grams, so it's very, very light. So by the time we've put on and made up the cable, which I'll do now, this thing is going to be even lighter than the original keychain cam that I made last time. So what I'm going to do is take these things out of the packet and I'll show you how we actually do this. So these are lossy micro connectors. They're actually bought from eBay. They are a bit tricky to get hold of, but worthwhile doing if you want to try this. It comes as a male and a female, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to scrape away a little bit of the insulation on this wire. I'm going to cut the ends of this wire very, very short and then solder it back to back. So in this case green to green and blue to blue, and then these flying ends will actually be connected to the camera. I'll put some heat shrink over the top to provide some mechanical protection, but that's the way that we do it. So here, what I've done is I've ignore the black bits, that's just the bit where the soldering iron's getting the covers a bit hot. So I've stripped and tinned those wires on that one. I've cut these really short, and what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to connect them like that, so that we have a flying lead out the back and we have a nice connection. And then we're going to have to insulate these from each other, because obviously we don't want them touching, and then provide a bit of strain relief using some shrink wrap over the top. So I'll do that, and then we'll come back and have a look at the finished product. So here it is. I've actually now soldered that on. What I'm going to do is just push in the two little pegs on this side to pull it out, and then what that'll do is let me slide over some very small shrink wrap, and then I can heat shrink that onto these two connectors, keep them separate, and then I'll push those two pins back into this connector. So I'll do that, and we'll have a look what that looks like. Bear with me. So here it is, the finished article with the jumper cable on the back for connection. I've also added a little thin piece of black shrink wrap, just to give a bit more strain relief for these cables, because I'll be pulling them on and off. I don't want to pull them off that motherboard, so I've wrapped them behind the USB connector, and then just use that little thin piece of shrink wrap just to keep it in place. The camera now points forward, so if the board is mounted this way up, it's actually looking out. So connecting it onto the Viper, I'll be able to connect it using the strip like that, and then connect it up to the power at the back of the model using the jumper. So hopefully that's been useful. This is just about 6 grams in total, so I'm going to give it a test flight later, and I'll post the video. Thanks for watching.